Welcome to Sarpy Outlook. I'm O'Dea Lippert, and I'm delighted to have as our premier guest Neal Von Seggern. Welcome, Neal.
Thank you, Peg.
I first met you several years ago when you came to our home for a State of the Union event, and you've never left. I don't mean you haven't left our home, but you've never left the cause. You've remained as a quiet, calm, and effective activist, so I'm delighted to have you this evening.
Thanks, Peg. That's a very special opportunity that we have to talk about our interest in politics and being active. Yes, it was a number of years ago when I started to become a little more active in politics and especially the Democratic Party. I'd always voted Democratic during my years prior to that, and I found out that after I had made some contributions at the time that President Obama was up for his first election, that I received some invitations to be involved in some of the local meetings. And your home was one that was hosting a gathering for the State of the Union watch party. And your invitation for the area people who were interested caught my attention, and I was pleased to come to your house, and the hospitality was great.
Thank you, Neal. Well, we're very glad that you came too. I know shortly after Christmas you told us about your visit to Cabela's in La Vista. I was so deeply moved by that report that I'd like you to talk about that again, if you would, please.
Well, that's a good opportunity to talk about something I think all of our communities should be concerned about. It did come up to my attention, as it did for our whole nation, when the tragedy took place in Connecticut. And it was at prior to Christmas time, and I think everybody was focusing on what concerns they had about gun violence in our country. I remember seeing reactions of people about guns present in our society that are not appropriate. And I noticed in a circular, which I have with me also today,
Oh, you saved it.
the ad that caught my attention from Cabela's. It caught my attention because of amidst all the things that might be purchased for a hunter at Christmas time, and families might be purchasing these things, I did come across the one page in that ad that said, "Great gifts for the youthful hunter." And on that page were a number of guns that youth might start out hunting with, but at the bottom is an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. And with that semi-automatic rifle comes a 30-round magazine. And I was so frustrated to see that advertised so openly by Cabela's. And on the front page, on the top of the page, it's saying it's a gift for a youthful hunter. On the next page, though, is also a Sig Sauer automatic handgun, which was also a brand that was used in some of the tragedy as well, in the shootings. So I determined that if we as a people are not aware of the kind of tragedy that can take place and don't take some initiative, this would seem to be acceptable. But I wanted to go down and confront and talk to the managers at Cabela's, so I took this ad with me. I went into the store and also had with me a letter that I had written to our congressman about availability of those guns, and that can be purchased in any sporting goods store. And so I went into the store and asked for a manager of the department that would be selling guns. And I was asked why I wanted to talk to a manager, and the young lady who spoke to me gave me a little bit of attention. They were very busy. I must say, before Christmas, the store was full. And she asked me why, and I said I wanted to talk about the weapons that were being sold, that were not hunting weapons. These are weapons that are used for doing much harm and damage. And she pointed out a manager of the munitions, the rifle department and the gun department, and said, well, he's busy with a customer, but you can go over and talk to him when he's done. There, I was stunned, is a machine that gave out numbers. They were selling guns by numbers as if you're buying ice cream cones or something. I took a number and I waited there and walked around a little bit, and pretty soon I noticed a manager, someone I thought was going to ask me, to help me. He asked me if he could help me, and I said I wanted to talk to the manager of the gun department. And he said, well, maybe we can help you. As I looked, there was not one manager beside me, but 3. And I was surrounded by these managers who didn't say anything, but they asked me what my concern was. And I showed them the circular. I said I wanted to convey to Cabela's my concern that these guns are so readily available. They said, well, let's go sit down and talk. And we went over to a table, and the 4 of us sat at a table. They let me explain my concern, why I was there. And they said, well, we can't comment because, of course, we're employees. We can't comment on the issue. I said, I understand you're working for the store and the company, but if you would at least pass this on to the managers and those who make decisions about the selling of these guns, I would appreciate it. And so they, one of the managers said, well, I'll get you the address of our manager for Cabela's, and gave me that name and address, but they never left my side. They stood beside me and made some small talk, asked me if I'd been into their store before. I said I had. They asked me if I'd been into other stores, other sporting goods stores. And I said I'd heard that Dick's Sporting Goods also carried those guns, but I'd heard that they had withdrawn their guns or taken them off the shelves. And then after I had gotten the address for Cabela's manager, it was actually a public relations manager that I was given the address for, I left, and that was it. But it was kind of like they expected maybe some more aggressive approach to my presence there.
What was that like for you, Neal, to be all of a sudden surrounded by these 3 managers, not carrying guns, I assume?
Not carrying guns. I was surprised. I knew that this was very significant. My reaction was that they had also already considered what would they do if somebody came in to protest, because it was that coordinated.
Did you feel threatened in any way by their reaction to your, anti-violent approach?
I think they just were certainly doing their job as employees, and I did make that comment to them. I said, I realize you are doing your job that you're asked to do, but I think as citizens we have to be more responsive to those things which we have to be active about, and one of which would be to be aware of the kind of weapons that are totally available without any restriction.
Well, thank you, Neal, once again for that account. I know that that is not your only one-man mission of anti-hate. And so would you tell us a little bit also about the efforts that you've made to try to influence the local advertisers regarding the Rush Limbaugh talk show on radio?
Yes, I think I did explain that a little bit at one of our meetings, that I had begun to try to have some feedback to our local radio station of KFAB, which carried both Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck, and I had not really heard so much of their content, of their programs, until I began to see on talk news programs that I've watched frequently. Some segments of their outrageous statements would be played, and I was really angered and also frustrated that they could say these kinds of things many times, hateful things. Yeah. The talk was inflammatory and hate-filled and often filled with much prejudice and bigotry. And so I began to listen a little more often to Rush Limbaugh and also Glenn Beck when they were on the radio. And I would listen to the advertisers that were during those time periods, realizing that those attitudes couldn't have been reflecting anything that those advertisers stood for. They were colleges, universities, medical schools, car dealerships, insurance companies. I just heard
responsible businesses.
Yes, who had tremendous reputations in our community. And so I began to contact the radio station. I then wrote letters to those advertisers. First, I'd begin by calling the local advertiser and asking for who the manager or the PR person might be. They oftentimes would be very responsive and give me that name. I asked for a mailing address, and I received that. And then began to write letters. And I sent a copy of the letters to KFAB also. And I would oftentimes not know the response for sure from the advertisers, but I began to hear fewer and fewer responses of our advertising during those times. There was one particular real estate company who had the voice of Rush Limbaugh himself making this advertisement for this advertiser or this sponsor in Omaha. That really made me think that it was time to be aggressive in contacting them and asking them, do you know the content of what Rush Limbaugh is presenting or Glenn Beck is presenting? And I can't imagine that you would agree with these issues. And I did talk to some of those sponsors personally, and I remember one manager of an insurance company said, no, that's absolutely not what we agree with, and I will speak to our agent about having that ad pulled off of that station.
What other kinds of responses did you have, Neal, to your one-man, again, anti-hate campaign? Do you feel it was successful?
I really hope so. One car dealership, huge car dealership in our area, regularly would sponsor a time during those shows. When I called them, they also said they absolutely did not agree with that. And if I heard their ad on again during those hours, I should let them know. And so I did. I called again and mentioned, you asked me to please let you know if their ad was on again, because I don't think many of the advertisers knew what time of the day that what time their ad would be aired. And when they found out, I began to hear fewer and fewer ads during those times.
So don't ever believe that one person can't make a difference,
Absolutely.
Neal, I would say.
Yeah. It does take a little bit of discipline in approaching, I think, the advertisers in the right way, approaching people you want to influence in the right way. That's I think, the respect you gain when you approach them in a straightforward way.
Well, I once again want to thank you for all that you've done. And in concluding, would you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know that you just didn't all of a sudden decide these were things you wanted to do. But so tell us, if you would, Neal, a little about yourself and your experience.
Sure. I hope that what I'm doing reflects much of what my life work has been. I've been a Lutheran pastor for 40-some years before I retired, and then I had more time to spend being a little more active. But
it's dangerous retirement. It's dangerous.
The time I began to become interested in politics was a time in which I could actually devote a little more attention to those things which I think that I've believed in my own sense of right and wrong, that the hurt of one person is the hurt of everyone in a community. Those attitudes about being certain that when we take care of one another and we watch out for one another, we benefit as a society and a community. And that means we need to be active and alert in politics as well.
Well, I thank you so much, Neal, for being with us and sharing those remarkable stories. And thanks again.
My privilege.